Good evening, KSRA viewers. We're going to try this again. We did try to get our live feed going here a while ago with Blake, and it all went to pieces on us, and the internet gods got after us, I guess, or somebody. And we're going to start all over again with our interview. I'm Lyle Cadell. I'm the KSRA social media director and one of the board, members of the board of directors for the KSRA. And we're going to interview Representative Blake Carpenter, who serves the 81st District down in the Wichita, Derby area. And we're going to be discussing his portion, at least, of the mega gun bill, as it was been referred to. House Bill 2502 became that through a legislative process, and we've kind of been keeping you all up to date through our Facebook pages and stuff on how that came to be, and it passed this last weekend overwhelmingly, by the way, in both House and Senate. It was 32-6 in the Senate, and then 92-28, I believe, in the House. And Blake, I want us just to start and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your district, and then we'll move from there, and what committees you do serve on right now.
Well, I represent the 81st District. It is the north part of Derby, some of southeast Wichita, McConnell Air Force Base, and it has some rural area going out towards Rose Hill. And currently I serve on the Judiciary Committee, Health and Human Services, and Veterans, Military, and Homeland Security. And so I'm sure that those will change up, or they have the potential to change up every year. And so I'm up for my first re-elect this year, so I just got done serving my first term in office.
All right. Now, just to 2502, give us just a feel for how that came together. I did that with JR a little bit, but folks don't always understand how all these bills kind of come in at the last minute, and they actually come together into what is called a conference committee report. Or a conferenceable bill. It was a shell bill. And then we had been telling folks to support House substitute for Senate Bill 65 for a long time. And then it became all of a sudden House Bill 2502. And they got an alert through email and everything else on that. And they're probably wondering, what in the world? How in the world did that all happen? Can you explain that process to us just a little bit?
Yeah, I can definitely help you guys out with that. So when I first originally introduced my bill, which was 2468, I introduced it in the Fed and State Committee on the House side, and you can either introduce it in one chamber and work it through that chamber, or you can introduce it in both chambers, trying to increase the chances of it getting through the process. And so I believe that that's basically what happened with Senate Bill 65. It had a lot of the same portions that J.R. Clay's bill did on the House side, and they were basically almost mirror images of each other, from my understanding of it. But so I introduced my BB gun bill on the House Fed and State Committee side. We had a hearing on it in January, and then what ended up happening was they worked the bill a couple weeks later, and then after that we had a vote on it roughly towards the end of regular session. And the vote, I think, was like 94, 95 votes for it to 27. And so it passed out of the House side. And then we had a chance to have a hearing for it on the Senate side. But then after that, we just ran out of time. And so what I did was I went to the House Fed and State, because they were listening to Senate Bill 65, because this was after turnaround. And after turnaround, we have about a week off from the legislature. And that's when all the people who work in the legislature for our revisers and so on and so forth, they do a lot of paperwork, and they basically take the House bills that we passed, take them over to the Senate, and then they take the Senate bills that the Senate passed and they give them to the House. And so Senate Bill 65 ended up in the House Fed and State Committee, and that's where I amended my BB gun bill into it when they were working the bill. And that's when Representative Kevin Jones had his military concealed carry portion of the bill amended into it. And so a lot of the items that were ultimately in the final bill were amended in the House Fed State Committee. And then what happened was I guess they needed a shell, and so that's where the 2502 number came from. And they basically took the contents of Senate Bill 65 and they put that inside of 2502.
And that shell bill can be a bill that has been passed by both houses. Is that correct?
Passed by one house at least, yeah.
Okay. And so that's how we got 2502.
Yes.
And this has happened in years past, of course, with different gun bills, mega gun bills that we've dealt with. And so it's not a new creation or anything like that, or a new process. In fact, SB 45, I believe, last year went through some of that same process, or might have been another bill. I can't remember. All right offhand. So anyhow, we'll get back to the main portion of it, and your portion of it had to do with the BB gun or air gun portion, which was originally House Bill 2468. Can you tell us how that came about and how you got to be involved in it? I mean, how did it evolve?
Well, last fall, my school board down here in USD 260 were basically pushed by their superintendent to get rid of or close down the BB gun club that had been in operation facilities for the past 30 years. And it had no incidents, they had no accidents or anything like that. But basically, what ended up happening was the superintendent found out about this club and went to the school board and said, "This is against our gun policy. We need to close this down." And so the school board closed it down with a 3-4 vote. And so it was a close vote. And ultimately, that led us to me going around door knocking on people's doors, talking to them last fall before this next session started, and I ended up hearing them wanting the BB gun bill or the BB gun club to remain, and they were upset about it. And so what ultimately ended up happening was I got with the Daisy BB gun club, the coach who was there, and I also got with some people who are in 4-H. They do tournaments and practices all around the state, and they all ultimately helped come together, and we all crafted the BB gun bill, I would say probably last November, December timeframe, so that it was ready to go when we got up to session this January.
All right. And what did that BB gun air gun bill do then in effect?
It makes it to where school boards can't discriminate, or schools can't discriminate against BB gun clubs or people who want to use their air guns for practices or tournaments. And so they are to be treated just like any other normal organization, club, or community entity that wants to use the school facilities. And so, like, if a church organization wants to use the school facilities, they generally let them. And so basically we just wanted to make sure that they weren't discriminated against because it had gun in the name and we were being politically correct. And so also this statute put that in statute that air guns are a .18 caliber or less and under 700 feet per second or less, and that's what classifies as an air gun. And we also said that it's not a weapon, and that the school boards have the ability to regulate the students on whether or not they can have them in their lockers. I would assume that most school boards would not allow that, but they could probably have them in a closet or something like that that's locked up, and then at the end of the day, they can go grab their weapon or their air rifles on the way to practice. And if the school board doesn't want them at all on campus until at the end of day, then the students would have to go home, grab their air rifles, come back, and then they could do their practice. And so
an association, and I know it's delineated in the bill, the 2502 as well, because it adopted your language. An association like ours could sponsor an event, or a 4-H club could too, and come in now through this bill, come into and use a school facility to have a BB gun tournament for kids.
Yes, that's correct. And so KSRA could come in, which one of your folks already do, Larry Richardson, who helps write your guys' Chips and
Correct.
Ricochet's article, he's the coach down here for the
Yeah.
AZBB Gun Club, and so he already helps participate and helps facilitate all that. But there's rules, there's national guidelines that you can use to make sure that everybody's safe. That you teach weapon safety to the kids, and that the walls and there's tarps and whatnot behind the targets so that the walls don't get dinged up or anything like that. And it's as safe as can be, because I ended up attending one of these 4-H tournaments here in Sedgwick County, up in Wichita, in January, right before we went and did the testimony on behalf of the bill.
Now, one of the big concerns is people, they when they went before the legislature said, well, this is all about one school district and one school district only. Rather than it being, and brought the local control issue into play and everything, and it's all special for just the Derby school district. And rather than looking at it as a whole, that any school district across the state of Kansas could have had the potential of discriminating against because of some biased opinion against guns, could have come along and said, nope, we can't do that. We can't have that. But now it's across the entire state. If Governor Brownback signs this, that, hey, there's no school district in the entire state of Kansas that can say no or discriminate against any organization or club, for that matter. So I guess I'm stating something but asking a question. The question being about local control and this idea that it's all about Derby, but it's not. It's all about the state of Kansas and the kids for the state of Kansas.
Yeah, and honestly, they use the local control argument quite a bit, and that this is just for one school district. Why do we need to just do this for this one school district when that ties the hands of everybody else? Well, I think that this is more than just one school district, and not only that, but this to me is not just about local control. It's about anti-discrimination. It's about making it to where kids can still learn gun safety in a reasonable manner, and they have these facilities open to the taxpayers, because ultimately the taxpayers are funding this. So why do they not get the same rights as somebody else? And not only that, but there's a gal from Wyandotte County who has been participating in practices and tournaments for years, and I believe she's 19 years old now. And back in January, she was in Germany participating in a BB gun competition in Germany, and I believe she won that. And she's well on her way to joining the Olympic team for BB gun shooting sports and competitions. And so, I mean, that's Wyandotte County, and so it's all over the state. And to be able to allow these opportunities for the kids, not only to participate, either at the school, or it just allows them to have a place to where they can practice and train, and ultimately go on to either participate in college or go on to participate in the Arkansas tournament. There's an Arkansas BB gun tournament every year, and it just gives them valuable opportunities for them to go forward into a non-traditional sport. And this sport has less injuries, less risk in it than football, basketball, baseball, you name it, because it's not a physical contact sport. And so it's safe, and as long as we keep teaching gun safety, this helps the kids when they get older with real firearms.
Very much agreed. I know that when I started out as a young boy, that was what I started out with, was a BB gun. And was handed down to me. It was my brother's first, who's almost 10 years older than I am, and then it was handed down to me, and he got a 410, I got a BB gun. And that was kind of how that happened. But and that's how we started out. And then we went up to a 22 and so on and so forth. And shortly, by the time I was 10, 12 years old, I was shooting a 30-06. So,
and look, you still have both your eyes too. You didn't shoot them out.
That's exactly right. But now, this local control issue, I know it came up last year or the year before, with preemption, total preemption, when we fought for that, for open carry across the state. The issue of local control, the idea of local control when it comes to gun rights, Where are you at on that? I mean, is it? I'll leave it there. Where are you at on that for folks to understand?
Well, I believe you're talking about the bill that my predecessor helped carry through the legislature. Are you talking about Jim Howell's bill that he
Yes.
had?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I completely agree with that legislation because what the legislation did was it made uniform um, uniform law all across the state. So if I'm concealing carrying into one municipality where it's legal, and then if I go into another municipality where I'm doing the exact same thing, it could be illegal. And so basically, what that law did was it just did a blanket. This is what the law is across the whole state, so that you can travel within your own home state and the law is consistent and you're not breaking the law from one municipality to the next. And I think that that was very valuable to all gun owners.
Absolutely, and that's the same way with school districts. And so we just want folks to understand just that basic principle and not be confused on it. Are there other issues that you ran into as far as oppositional issues when you were working this bill through the legislature?
No, I would say that other than just the local control argument, that's the only thing that I ever really heard. As far as any other issues, I would say that it was very hard and very long to get legislation passed. This is my first bill that I've ever tried to carry through the process, and let me tell you, it was long and hard, and you have to have a lot of people helping you because if you don't have the leadership in the Senate, if you don't have the leadership in the House trying to help you get your goal or your objective done, I would say that it's near to impossible to be able to accomplish. And so, without a bunch of people, I mean, you need at least 50, 60 people just trying to help you get this thing through, and it takes a lot of effort, but it's well worth it in the end. So.
I know when it actually passed Sunday night, I sent you a text and we were talking back and forth and just congratulated you on the hard work that you'd put in, and the other guys have too in the process. I mean, it's a lot of people don't realize that how the sausage is made in Topeka, and they don't realize that there is that tough, hard work of bringing two parties together and getting people to agree on things, and it's very complicated and it's hard work.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, bringing leadership together, we dealt with that this year. We were, had to send out an alert for a chairman of a committee, unfortunately, and we don't like to do that, but we want folks to work together. And
Well,
not
that just goes to show how complicated this process can be. You have to make sure that everybody is on the same page and you're all working together because really it only takes one person in the right spot to
Yeah.
make it to where you have to try that much harder to try to get your legislation through.
Agreed, and that's what I think people don't understand sometimes is that it can be just a chairman of a committee, a very influential committee, or a person. For instance, when a conference committee comes together of 6 people, it can just take 3 people that disagree with something, or really one when it comes down to it, and
Yeah,
it
and
ruins
and when
the whole
you
thing.
have a conference committee that disagrees, that's when both sides, the Senate and the House, will run an agree to disagree, and there's 3 people from the House, 3 people from the Senate, and one from each side is of the minority party, and then the other 2 from each side are from of the majority party. So there's 4 Republicans, 2 Democrats on the conference committee at all times. So if the Democrats don't agree, then you have to run an agree to disagree. And then if you get back, you have to have 4 people sign it. And if one of the Republicans doesn't agree with it, then you're toast until you can figure out a compromise.
Yeah, and I really, hope that folks, gather from this video some education, how it's done. And you guys, we were talking to JR about how some of the sausage is made, and we were discussing the things in the middle of the night, as it's said, that are quote unquote done in the middle of the night, and the skeptical nature of that, and the fact that in the House, for instance, you guys worked till I think it was 3:30.
The House only
Monday.
worked till about 1. The Senate, I believe, worked till about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And so, but as far as the dead of night, I heard JR's a little bit about that as well. I totally agree with what he said, which is that these committee hearings happen well in advance. People know about them. Like I said, on the House, Fed, and State side, we had our committee hearing in January at 9:30 in the morning. And so we did that committee hearing, and people had the ability to voice their opposition or voice their support for this legislation all the way back in January. And this legislation has just been sitting there basically up until March, April, and then when we came back, we finally just now got to the point where we were late enough in the session that we were working well into the night, and that's just when the final vote came up for both chambers.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate sometimes that people don't understand how things work, and then you guys do work down there, and of course you have jobs that you have to come back to. That's the thing. We'll be talking to Forrest Knox, a senator, and he has a farm that he runs, and you have a job that you do year round, and it's not like you are just a legislator and that's all you do, and you're a highly paid guy that just sits around and does nothing but only 3 months out of the year.
Exactly. We're only up there for maybe 90 days. Actually, this year we were up there for, I believe, 72 days, which was the shortest session in 42 years. And so we followed by, so in 2015, we had the longest session in Kansas history. So it's nice that this year we ended it with a 42-year short session.
Yeah, and it's just I think a good thing for people to realize who the representatives are. And I encourage you, if you're watching this video, find out who your representative is and find out what he or she does for a living, and talk to them. Build a relationship with them. Build a relationship. If you live in the Derby or Wichita area and Blake's your representative, build a relationship with Blake and get to know him as your friend, because there may come a time where something and it may be Second Amendment related, that affects you, and you need somebody to talk to at the State House. Pick up the phone, and I can call Blake. I can call my representative. I know him. That's incredibly important that people get involved in the process.
And that's how the BB gun bill basically came about.
Yes.
I knew Larry Richardson, and I knew Jim Howell, and Jim said, "Hey, Blake, there's a guy who here in Derby. He has a situation," and so I called Larry up, and him and I discussed it, and we talked several times before we came up with a definitive path forward, and from there we worked together, and it all worked out. And so it just takes that simple seed to start something that can ultimately lead to a piece of legislation.
Yeah. Well, I think that, if you don't, can't see any other areas that we need to clarify. Maybe we didn't get any questions. I did solicit questions from folks on Facebook as well as on Instagram, and I didn't get any. So if they
That's
have
all
questions,
right. It makes my job easier.
if they have questions later, for sure they can get a hold of us at Kansas Gun Laws and Legislation. It's the Facebook group, or on our Facebook page at Kansas State Rifle Association, or they can get a hold of you. Blake, how can they get a hold of you?
If you go to Google and just type in Kansas Legislature, the Kansas Legislative website will pop up, and then just click on the House tab, and then it'll have all of our names in there alphabetically, and you can just go down, click on my name, and it'll have my contact information under my profile. Basically, if you go there, it'll tell you everything you need to know about your legislator, what their profession is, what their contact information is as far as email, phone number, their office information. And so you can find all that out on the Kansas Legislative website. And if you don't not sure who your legislator is, if you go to Google, you can also I think it's type in Find My Legislator, and then you click on the Find My Legislator link, and then you type in your address, you hit search, and it'll tell you who your state representative and state senator is, and it'll show you their boundaries.
And of course, you can also do that on our website. We're on the legislative section of our website, ksraweb.org. That's ksraweb.org. And you can check out that there too, and go through the search process. So, folks, you can get involved, and it's proof. This bill is proof of that. With Larry down there, good guy from our organization. We enjoy Larry and Jim Howell, part of our board, your predecessor, and we just everybody has to be getting involved and to fight for our Second Amendment rights and the shooting sports for kids. That's the I so appreciate outdoor mentors. I know, Blake, if you're familiar with Mike Christensen down there, running outdoor mentors, and how he's getting the kids involved in the next generation, bringing them up to understand their Second Amendment rights in the outdoors and enjoying it. So, and BB guns, hey, that's the way most of us started, and we need to keep that in our schools. So, I appreciate the conversation tonight, and I apologize for the little glitches we've had technically, but it's been good, and I hope people have been informed. And here's the truth about the issue and about local control and all that type of thing. And they can, instead of watching the 6 o'clock news, they can come watch this and get the straight. Here's the raw truth, and that's our goal as a KSRA, is to get the raw truth out there, unbiased, unabashed, and we're going to press on for the Second Amendment cause, and work with you guys to get that accomplished.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for all you guys do. I really appreciate it, and feel free to reach out to me again in the future.
Will do, and I again appreciate it so much, and we'll be in touch with you guys. When we work, and by the way, we don't just work with Republicans; we work with Democrats as well, and seek to bring bipartisan effort, because the Second Amendment is a right to keep and bear arms, and the shooting sports are not for Republicans only, or for Democrats only, or for libertarians. They're for all of us to enjoy, and so we want to just keep that in mind, that they're there for everybody, and the Constitution is for all of us, and not just some of us. So, Blake, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time to just take out of your evening. I know you have a family and everything, and we'll keep in touch with you though, and on down the road there may be another Second Amendment issue that we can talk about. So, thank you so much.
I look forward to helping you guys out in the future.
So, KSRA folks, stay tuned with we got some other Kevin Jones will be on tomorrow night at 8:30. He is a representative that has the military, active duty military personnel that are be able to get their CCL easier now through 2502, through this legislation that was passed. If you want to learn about that, stay tuned for that as well. Forrest Knox, a senator from down by Altoona, I worked on SB 65 and 66, which is really was the core piece of this bill. Had to do with public access and public areas and so on and so forth. And we'll be talking to him. We'll also be talking to Kelly Arnold, who was very instrumental in what became known as Wichita Fast Pass legislation that was involved in this mega bill as well. So stay tuned so you can get the real truth. Okay, and have a great evening this evening, and enjoy and stay tuned to the KSRA. Thanks so much. Bye bye.